You've got a greeting card emergency.
Hello and welcome to Greeting Card Emergency. I've got just one card today and it's a thank you card, but it's a very special kind of thank you and there's a story behind it, so I have to tell the story. In 2012, in May, I was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, walking along the sidewalk on a hot day, and I was carrying with me this suitcase, which contained everything I owned, and I had $60 in my wallet. And I was tired. I was on my way from the last couch I had slept on to the next couch I was going to sleep on, and I thought, I wonder if it's worth it to spend a little bit of my money on a bus trip. So a bus came up to me, and I asked, how much is it? And this angel-faced guy said, it's free, friend, which is not a sentence you ever hear if you've been living in New York up till now like I'd been. So I got on board, and I had to keep an eye on where we were going, so I stood next to the driver with my suitcase, watching the front of the road. So the driver said, where are you from? And I said, for some reason, actually, I'm homeless. I'd never told anybody this before. I'd never said this out loud to a stranger. I had been living with friends on their generosity, trying desperately to get money, to get a job, to get my life back together for 10 months. And no one had ever said, I'm homeless. I'd never expressed it that way. I'd said, I'm couch surfing. I'm, between friends. I'm vagabonding. But I said, I'm homeless. And it hit. It felt really true. And I thought, why did I say this to this total stranger? And the driver said, I was homeless once. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, I was 30 years old. I got divorced. I lost everything. And it was hard. I said, well, how did you get through it? He said, hold on. He turned a corner, and we were passing by UNC Chapel Hill, and he pointed at a building. And he said, I used to sleep right on top of that building. I had a tarp so I could cover up all my stuff when it rained. Police never checked up there, and, it was hard, but that was where I would look for work. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, I got this job. They even trained me. They'll train you. Would you like to, drive a bus? And he handed me a card. And I took it, and I thought, this is so kind. And yet it doesn't feel right. It doesn't, I'd been looking for work, and I knew that these guys probably weren't looking for a 43-year-old guy with a PhD in English and a spotty employment history. So I just stood there quietly, thanking him, and he kind of figured, I think, that it hadn't quite taken. So we kept driving along. And while we were driving, he would point. He would say, Pizza Hut, I bet they're hiring. There's a bike shop, I'm sure they need somebody. Flower shop, you can drive, right? I bet they need a driver. There's a restaurant, I actually know the guy, I can put in a good word for you. You seem like a good person. On and on and on, all through these miles we were driving. And I felt so overwhelmed by his kindness, and at the same time so weird, because I felt like I was in the middle of a story. I didn't feel like I was ending it. I didn't feel like I was going to wind up in North Carolina. This was just a stop along the way to something else. So it didn't feel right to me, and I didn't know why. And then he grabbed my arm, and he said, you're going to be okay. And that's when I lost it. It hadn't occurred to me for a year. That was all I needed to hear. And I needed to hear it from someone who knew it was going to be okay, who had lived that. And I didn't know anyone else like that in my life. And I almost cried right there because I didn't want to be the guy crying on the bus. I ran off the bus and became the guy crying on the street with his luggage in the middle of Chapel Hill. But every so often you get an opportunity to thank somebody where a simple card almost doesn't seem right. And this is the card I wrote for that bus driver. It says, I may not know what I want to do with my life, but I know who I want to be like. Thanks for forever. That's the card. It's a true story. I cannot find that man. I went to North Carolina and couldn't hunt him down. But I hope this has made your day slightly more pleasant.